All right, everybody. Hi, thanks for joining us. And if you're watching the recording later, thanks for tuning into that. And you can leave your questions in the comments and we'll try to address them later. I am Lindsay Ponta. I started Montgomery County Native Plant People this past April, and Kristen Taddy of Reforest Montgomery is joining us for an awesome session about some resources that I think are going to be really useful for some of us who have more space to fill in. So here's the format for today. We are doing this as a webinar, so we can't see you, but if you have questions, you can leave them in the comment thread on the video on Facebook, and I'll be checking that regularly. Kristen's going to go through a presentation, and then we will answer your questions at the end of that. And let's go ahead and get started. So Kristen Taddy manages the Reforest Montgomery and Forest Mitigation Bank programs of the Montgomery County Planning Department, which is part of MNCPPC. And that's where she works to protect the county's mature forests, improve forest conservation law and regulations, and provide free trees. That's what you guys are going to be excited about. And reforestation for Montgomery County residents. Kristen has a master's in conservation biology and sustainable development from University of Maryland, and she previously worked on advocacy and conservation issues with Casey Trees in Washington. So Kristen, why don't you go ahead and dive right in?
Great, thanks, Lindsay. So can you hear me okay, just to double check? Awesome. So I'm so excited to be with you all today, this afternoon. As Lindsay said, I'm Kristen Taddy, and I work with the Montgomery County Planning Department running our Reforest Montgomery program. And Montgomery Planning is part of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. And I'm so excited to discover your group. Thanks, Lindsay, for reaching out to me. This is great. And I'm excited to discuss some of our options for free and discounted trees that are available to you as part of our Reforest Montgomery program. So I'm going to share my screen here and pull up the presentation. How does that look, Lindsay? Can you see that all right?
I sure can.
Okay, wonderful.
Perfect.
So first, some helpful background information. So bear with me, there's a bit of text on this slide, but I actually think it's kind of interesting to understand just a little bit about the Forest Conservation Law, which is where the funding for Reforest Montgomery comes from. So the state of Maryland passed the Maryland Forest Conservation Act of 1991. And since that time, many counties, including Montgomery County, have adopted their own stronger forest conservation laws. So projects that are subject to the law may need to submit a forest conservation plan, which results in a forest mitigation requirement. And in some cases, projects can meet that requirement by making a fee in lieu payment. And so these payments generate the Forest Conservation Fund, which funds the programs of Reforest Montgomery. So the planning department is essentially assuming these requirements when we accept fee in lieu payments. But because we have been creative with our partnerships, we are able to plant above and beyond these requirements. So the planning department has assumed 45 acres of requirement through fee in lieu and reforested 69 acres with the Forest Conservation Fund to date. And if this topic is interesting to you and you'd like to learn more about the law or the fund, I highly recommend checking out the resources on our webpage. We have a great Q&A on the forest conservation law, and there's lots of fun information on the fund as well. So I've linked to a lot of resources at the end of this presentation, which I'm sure can be shared if you'd like. So about a year and a half ago, the Reforest Montgomery program was launched, and it brought together the department's existing forest conservation and tree planting programs under one umbrella program, and it introduced a few new programs as well. So the two programs I'm going to discuss in the most detail this afternoon, which are probably most useful to you, existed previously as Shades of Green and Leaves for Neighborhoods. But now they're simply known as Reforest Montgomery's Free Shade Tree and Native Tree Discount or Coupon programs. And we've made some improvements to these programs as well. So first up, the Native Tree Coupon Program, which can be downloaded from the first link on our webpage. at montgomeryplanning.org/reforest. And this coupon offers a $40 discount on a qualifying tree at any of the participating nurseries or garden centers listed on the coupon. And all of these nurseries have coupons available in store as well. And the coupon itself has all the information that you need. So the tree must have a retail value of at least $75. And this just ensures that the tree is of a decent size so it can reach maturity faster. And the tree must be planted in Montgomery County. The tree also must be one of the trees listed on the back of the coupon here, and the coupon must be fully filled out when you are presenting it at checkout. So I understand there's some interest in native fruiting trees from this group, and Pawpaw is one of the qualifying trees for this program, which you may be pleased to see. We do not have persimmon or serviceberry on this list, but we may make some updates to this coupon program in the next couple of years. So if you have any ideas for trees that are native to Montgomery County that you'd like to see on this list, definitely let me know. I will consider your suggestions, of course. And this coupon can also be combined with the state of Maryland's Marylanders Plant Trees coupon for an additional $25 off. So if the tree qualifies for both programs, you can use both coupons. And so that means if the tree you'd like to purchase has a retail value of $75 and qualifies for both programs, you could purchase that tree for $10. So these are the nurseries and the garden centers that currently accept the Reforest Montgomery coupon. And if you're interested in a particular tree or trees, I do recommend calling ahead of time to see what the nurseries have in stock or what can be ordered for you. And they're all very accommodating and helpful in that regard. When it comes time to plant your new trees, we have a useful planting guide on the same webpage, which you can download and take outside with you. Next up is the Reforest Montgomery Free Shade Tree Program, which I expect many of you are interested in learning more about tonight. And that's to be expected as because this program is limited, but you are getting the tree itself plus installation and a watering bag all for free. This is about a $300 to $600 value. So this program, as you can imagine, is very popular. So properties in Montgomery County's priority funding areas are eligible for free shade trees from Reforest Montgomery. So about 98% of the county's residents live in a priority funding area, but just 36% of the county's tree canopy exists within this area. So that's why we are prioritizing these areas for planting through this program. So here's how it works. Applications for fall plantings are accepted starting February 1st of each year, while applications for spring plantings are accepted starting October 1st of each year. So that means we are accepting applications for our next planting season starting on Friday, October 1st, 2021. So if you're interested, I would recommend marking your calendars and setting a reminder. We do consider applications on a first come, first served basis and only until the slots for the season are filled up. And this has been very active recently. So we filled up last season in a day or two, and I expect probably the same thing this next go around. So I recommend you apply either just after midnight or early in the morning on the 1st if you're interested in if you're eligible and then interested in scheduling a site visit to discuss free trees. We cannot plant in the right of way through this program, so that means we can't plant street trees. But I also recommend taking a look at your property boundaries in mcatlas.org. It's a great resource that the planning department provides, and you can see in some cases your property boundary may be about halfway up what looks like your yard. So we're not able to plant in the front of that space that's adjacent to the right of way either. So just keep that in mind. And you must be ready to accept trees when you apply for the program. So I wouldn't recommend applying if you're planning any sort of construction or if you're not sure yet whether you want trees. Trees are also not guaranteed, but if your application is accepted, then a site visit will be scheduled to see the conditions and determine whether your property can accommodate trees. And finally, we don't hold a wait list, but you can reapply during the next open application period and as many times as you'd like. So the first step in this process, as I mentioned, is to, of course, submit an application. Check your eligibility, and if you're eligible and interested, go ahead and submit an application. We also work closely with Tree Montgomery, which is a program of the county's Department of Environmental Protection. So if you apply for a large tree with Reforest Montgomery, we may, and you don't, get in through our program, we may forward your application to Tree Montgomery with hopes that they could accommodate you earlier. You can also submit an application directly to Tree Montgomery because they do hold a wait list, unlike Reforest Montgomery. And Reforest Montgomery plants some smaller shade trees. So we take on 1 or 2 applications each season from Tree Montgomery if there's if there's not enough space on the property for a larger tree, because Tree Montgomery only plants large trees. So if we are able to accommodate your application, I will schedule a site visit at your property, and either that will be with you in person or I'll visit your property with your permission, and we'll review later over a virtual meeting. So we'll look at the planting conditions and possibilities for your yard, along with our shade tree selection list. And so this list is available on our website, and it's a much narrower list than the qualifying tree list for the coupon program. It's about 20 trees. And for these trees, we consider a number of different factors: whether the tree is native or has a native range that is very close to Montgomery County and is well adapted. These are also trees that generally have a shade tree form and are projected to withstand the increasing heat and intense storms expected due to climate change. And finally, they're the trees that are most likely to be available through the contractors that we work with through this program. So I'll send a proposed planting plan for you to review and approve, and then closer to the planting season, one of our contractors will reach out to schedule your planting, and I'll return to flag the planting location and provide one of our "this tree was free" signs if your tree is front facing. Finally, the planting will take place, and one of our contractors, either Stadler Nurseries or Casey Trees, will coordinate with you directly. After the planting, I typically return to inspect the tree, and then it's the responsibility of the property owner to water the tree. And so each tree comes with a watering bag to make that part easy, though there is a second watering method we also recommend, which does not require the watering bag. You can use both. And so I just wanted to reiterate that if your application is not accepted for the planting season you were hoping for, and you'd like to see if you can get trees sooner, there are other options. You can use the combined coupons I already mentioned. And Stadler Nurseries also offers free tree planting a couple of times a year through the spring and fall. So I'd check their webpage and give them a call if you're interested in learning more about that. Tree Montgomery, I mentioned, is another option. And there are also some additional planting programs and tree giveaways, et cetera, through the Maryland Department of Natural Resources Tremendous Maryland program. So you can check those out. So Reforest Montgomery has 3 other programs, which actually are the meat of our work. All 3 focus entirely on reforestation. So we coordinate up to 5 acres of reforestation and 50 large tree transplants on commission parkland in the county each year. There's actually a brand new video on our website that documents the large tree transplanting process. It's fascinating. And it goes through our partnership with Montgomery Park. So I recommend taking a look at the video as well. And our Relief the Reserve program offers free reforestation to property owners in the agricultural reserve. So this program is offered in partnership with the nonprofit Montgomery Countryside Alliance. And finally, we have a brand new easement reforestation program where property owners in Montgomery County that have a commission-held Category 1 forest conservation easement on their property can apply for free reforestation within the easement if the easement is not fully forested. So a good way to keep up with everything going on at Reforest Montgomery, open application periods, what to do about cicadas, how much and how often to water your trees, et cetera. A good way to keep up with all of that is by signing up for our newsletter, which you can do at montgomeryplanning.org/reforest. We send these quarterly, so that's only 4 times a year. We try not to clog your inbox. And in addition, you don't have to have a tree from us to sign up for our watering reminders, which we send out anytime it's extra dry or hot. We've been sending them out pretty much every week for as long as I can remember now. And then we stop sending them out in like late November or once it starts to frost. Our website also houses a really fun interactive map, which I encourage you to explore. So you can see where we have planted through Reforest Montgomery and where there are planned efforts through the program, perhaps in your area. And here's a list of the various links and resources I mentioned throughout the presentation, which you can use for future reference, or Lindsay, you can drop in the chat if you'd like, or in the comments. And you can also contact me anytime. This email address at the bottom here goes straight to me. So, like I mentioned, all the information is available online. Thank you for having me this afternoon, and I'm looking forward to starting the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Kristen. There we go. Fix the screen here. I'm just dropping your email address into the chat, and I have, if you tuned in like halfway through this, Kristen's links, all of those links to resources that were in the presentation have been dropped in as she was talking about them for when you're watching the replay.
Great.
Kristen, is it Reforest at Montgomery planning.org?
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Okay. So everybody, if you have questions for Kristen, if you want to know about the coupons, if you want to know about the shade tree program, timing, whether there's anything that makes a property or yard a good candidate, put those into the chat, into the comments on the video right now. And Kristen, I have a question for you. So the $40 tree coupon, first of all, that's great. I didn't realize you could combine it with the $25 coupon from Maryland, which I will be going and getting pawpaw trees soon. Yeah, as soon as it cools off, I'm planting.
Great.
Can you use those coupons more than once, or is that like once per year per household? How does that work?
As many as you'd like, as often as you like. The only stipulations really are listed on the coupon, that the tree needs to be over $75 in value, that it needs to be planted in Montgomery County, and the nurseries know to check for these things, so they'll make sure you have a fully filled out coupon. Yeah, the coupon needs to be fully filled out and completed. The only thing I'd really recommend is, so you can go and purchase 20 trees and use 20 coupons for that discount. You'll get it for each tree. Okay. I would recommend calling the nurseries ahead of time, seeing what they have. They can sometimes order trees for you if they don't have what you're looking for. So that's a great way to make sure you'll be able to get the discount, and you can confirm on the phone with them that you'd like to use the discount just to make sure they have a heads up. That's a great way of going about it for sure.
Okay, great. And I think you said that the nurseries have extra coupons on site in case somebody decides to pick up a tree while they're there.
Yes, I'm pretty sure at this point, all of them have them either at the register, or perhaps if they're not at the register, they'll have some behind the counter. But yes, we've provided lots of coupons to our nurseries, so I think they're pretty well stocked, especially because a lot of them were closed during COVID. So they weren't actually, handing off the coupons. There wasn't that exchange. So they've had them for a while. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. What else? Where do you suggest, if we're planting trees on our own and not through the shade tree program, where do people get the watering bags?
Oh, that's a great question. You can get them a lot of places, but Amazon, you can order them. That's normally where I recommend people get them. But yeah, I think a lot of nurseries and garden centers can also provide them or order them for you if they don't have them. Those are good places to start. So even if you are planting the tree on your own, if you're going to order it from one of the nurseries and use the coupon, that's another thing you could ask them about, either whether they have watering bags available or if they could be ordered for your project.
Okay, wonderful. So we have a question from Nora. Can you give advice about planting on a slope? If you have any strategies for preventing erosion, if somebody's has a slope and wants to start putting in trees on it?
That's a great question. And Nora, thanks for your question. So I think trees generally stabilize slopes. In terms of like particular species that stabilize better than others, I'm not really sure. I know that it might be tough to actually complete the planting and physically do the planting on a slope. But yeah, it's not a question that comes up that often, but I will say that over time, if you're able to plant a tree on a slope, it will help with your erosion problem. You probably are you know this already. That's probably why you're asking the question. But I would recommend planting on a slope, and depending on the amount of space you have, the bigger the better if you're not too close to a home or overhead power lines, because a wider reaching root structure will stabilize your slope even more. So it's a great idea if you have the conditions to support it.
So I'm going to elaborate on that question if you know this. Let's see, what can I share this with? Here's my tree and here's my slope. Do we plant like this, or do we plant perpendicular to the soil?
Straight up.
Okay, so we want to plant so that the tree is essentially, it's level, vertically level.
Definitely. Okay. And that may mean that over time, if it depending on where the light source is coming from, let's say, I wish I had a pencil and a phone, but let's say, so if here's your slope, this is a terrible slope. Let's say here's your slope. You plant the tree like this and the light source is coming from over here and all of its roots are over here, and let's say there's a sidewalk on this side, you might see the tree start to, lean towards the light. It still could be perfectly structurally sound that way, but you want to plant it going straight up. That's a great question. Yeah, nice and level with what would be a perpendicular plane.
Amy asked about the flavor of Pawpaws.
Oh,
she's new to the East Coast. She's never tried them before. Probably even heard of them.
I'm sure you've had them, Lindsay, right?
Yeah, they're like soft, and I've only had them a couple of times. It's like kind of a tropical taste, which is weird for here, I feel like.
It is. They're completely native. They love to grow along our riverbanks. You can see them in the wild, along our riverbanks in our parks a lot. Sometimes they're the understory trees in wetter forested areas. They look tropical, which is so interesting. They've got these broad leaves, and the fruit itself also looks kind of like a green mango, but a little smaller sometimes. And so you slice it open like you would an avocado. Don't go anywhere near the pit. It's poisonous. And you can kind of scoop out the fruit. It's soft, again, like an avocado, but not quite like an avocado. And some people describe the taste as being a cross between a mango and a banana, which I would say is pretty accurate.
Yeah, that does feel really accurate. Yeah. The texture is very mango and the flavor is pretty banana.
That's right. Yeah. It's like a very soft mango in terms of texture. And these, so pawpaws are going to be ripe soon in sort of mid-September. That's kind of when they're the most ripe. And you'll know that they're ready to eat when they're on the ground. So you want to catch a pawpaw midair to get a perfectly ripe pawpaw, basically. But if you have a pawpaw tree that you frequent and you've been watching those fruit and you're wondering when they're ready, keep an eye out for when they hit the ground. That's when they'll be ready.
That is super helpful to know. And Amy, one of the parks, I need to figure out who it is, does like a pawpaw tasting thing at some point in the fall where you can order you can reserve a set of fruit.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I'll see if I can figure out the deal with that.
Yeah, there are different varieties, and I think they may go through and taste all the different, or you can go through and taste all the different varieties. Less familiar with the difference between them, but
yeah, and it's good. I think I read it's good to have 2 different varieties for cross-pollination.
Oh yeah, you can also hand pollinate pawpaws by just with like a little pencil eraser, taking the pollen and adding it to the edge of the where it's going to fruit. I think like where the flower is. I'm sure you could look up hand pollination for pawpaws on YouTube, but yeah, it's something you can do, and it will yield a lot of fruit that way too.
Okay, that's exciting. We're all going to go out and buy pawpaws now.
Yeah, they're great.
So Karen asked where we can look up the environmental requirements for the available trees. Karen, I am linking that PDF from Reforest Montgomery in your comment. Dave wants to know if applying to Reforest Montgomery and Tree Montgomery simultaneously causes one application to supersede the other.
No, so two completely separate programs. The only way we work together is if either one of our programs cannot accommodate an application, we do our best to exchange them just to make sure we're planting as many trees and getting to as many applications as possible. But I highly actually encourage you to apply for both.
Okay.
And that's because Tree Montgomery holds a wait list, so you will be on their list until you get a tree, but it might take a long time depending on how much that they can plant and how long their wait list is. And Reforest Montgomery, you can apply with us as many times as you'd like during those open application periods. So what I will say is, let's say you are able to get in through our program, and we're kind of maxing out your yard when it comes to planting trees. And I come out and I say, okay, this is probably as many trees as you can fit here comfortably. Then what I'd recommend is that you reach out to Tree Montgomery and withdraw your application so they can get to other properties that are in need of trees. But there's absolutely no harm in applying for both, and I would recommend it.
That's a great point about withdrawing your application, because we got 3 or 4 trees from Tree Montgomery, shade trees, this past winter, fall, and we were on the wait list for a long time. So if you can, free up the wait list for anybody, try not to forget to do that.
Yep.
So Dave has another question. If we're not sure what we would qualify for as far as large versus medium trees, based on the space we have available, should we apply for both and let the program decide? So Dave is looking at Southern Magnolia versus American Holly. So
lovely. Yeah. So what matters in your application is the number of trees you're selecting. So let's say you think you have space for all 6 of the trees that we allow you to apply for. Go ahead and put down 6 so that we set aside 6 slots for you and we're counting up our applications. But in terms of tree preference, that won't be guaranteed until we come out and see what the site conditions look like. And even then, our contractors sometimes have difficulty sourcing certain trees, so we might come back to you with some alternatives. So that piece of your application is flexible, and you can select both for now, and then it's something that we can discuss on site or through a virtual meeting after I come out and take a look.
Okay, that's great to know. I'm just looking for any more questions we might have. All right, everybody, last chance to ask Kristen questions without having to email her. We've got the expert on the line here. Okay, great. Well, so Kristen, if we get a bunch of questions after the fact, I'll shoot them over to you and then post the answers in the group.
Good.
But this has been super helpful. And I love that it's making native trees so much more accessible without, people having to have a ton of money available, because, there are huge financial constraints in gardening. We sink so much money into this.
I know. As someone who plants trees and coordinates tree planting for a living, I know how expensive it is. So I think it's wonderful that, first of all, Lindsay, that you started this group, that there are so many people interested in planting native trees and plants in the county. And hopefully these programs help a little bit offset, some of those costs. So thanks for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. This is a fantastic program. Everybody, if you missed the beginning, Kristen talked about the shade tree program through Reforest Montgomery. That's linked in the comments. And she talked about the native tree discount, which is a $40 coupon that can be used on a $75 tree from their list. And you can actually stack that with Maryland's $25 coupon, which means you could be planting a pawpaw tree for $10. So check out the comments for those links, and just leave your questions in the comments, or feel free to email Kristen if you have any specific questions. And Kristen, we appreciate your time so much. This has been incredibly helpful, and I'm so appreciative that you can make the time to talk with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Lindsay. Thanks again. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, have a great day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.